Today we're doing a service on one of our Vector HLR coil shocks. To get started today, you're going to need a Vector HLR coil shock. You're going to need a table vise, an air blower with a long extension, an oil bucket, oil bath container, snap ring pliers, suspension pump, dental pick, O-ring install tools, pair of pliers, 1.5 hex key, 12mm bullet head, ratchet, 11mm socket, a 15/16 or 24mm socket, a Vector compression tool, an eyelet torquing tool, an IFP depth setting tool, 12mm shaft clamps, a torque wrench, a 22mm wrench, a strap wrench, some permanent Loctite, some alcohol, some 10-weight full synthetic suspension fluid, some suspension grease, and some lint-free towels. You're ready to go. So before we get started on this thing, what we're going to want to do is get the reservoir depressurized and count and see where our user's rebound and compression settings were. You'll want to take a note of that before you put it back in. Okay, go ahead and depressurize your reservoir and remove your 2 set screws. Set that on. Alright, so you're going to use your strap wrench to hold the reservoir body in place. Use your 15/16 socket to remove the reservoir cap. Pull out your bottom out assembly. Move your strap wrench to the damper body. The reason you're using the strap wrench is because you want the cap to come off and you want the seal head to come off. You don't necessarily want to break it from here or here if you can avoid it. All right. Damper unit aside. Drain your oil. So once you remove your damper, if you look inside the eyelet, there's a small crossover port inside there. What you're going to do is you're going to use your air line to blow the IFP out. And then rinse your body out. And you're going to set that aside to drain while you're working on the remainder of the shock. You're going to place the damper in the vise. Use your 11mm socket to free the piston bolt and piston assembly. So you have your plate, compression shims, piston, rebound shims, and piston bolt with check assembly. Next, remove your seal head. Use your pick to remove the outer seal, the dust wiper. Be really careful not to scratch that gland. Then remove the shaft O-ring. And set all of those seals together. Use your snap ring pliers to remove the bottom out control unit. pull the piston off, remove this small seal, remove your outer and inner seals from your bottom out adjuster piston. Try and keep the seals next to whatever they came off of so you can easily match it up. Then you're going to take your 12mm shaft clamps, separate your shaft from the rebound eyelet. You can then unthread the rebound knob, watching for the detent ball so you don't shoot it out. And you can set that aside to clean those threads out. Then, using your pliers, grab the rebound needle, remove that seal, remove the seal from your rebound adjuster needle. All right. Then you can clean off your shock shaft and get it ready to go back together. Next, you're going to put the eyelet back into the vise. Use your 1.5mm Allen to remove the low speed adjuster knob. Nice gentle little pull. Use your 1.5mm set screw again to remove the high speed adjuster. Then you're going to need your Vector compression tool. When you remove this compression assembly, make sure you're doing it over the workbench, so you're going to lose a lot of little parts inside here. So your adjusters come out, and inside that eyelet you're going to see a little check spring. Your eyelet is now stripped aside from one O-ring right down inside here. Pull that guy out, set that to drain. You're going to remove this high-speed unit. Spring. And in your adjuster assembly, just like on the rebound, make sure you get an eye on your detent ball so you don't shoot it across the shop. Unthread your low speed adjuster and give it a gentle tug. Then using a 6mm Allen, thread your high-speed adjuster into the housing and gently push it out the backside. Be careful you don't lose your high-speed detent ball. There it is. High-speed adjuster will just push out the back. You have a little teeny tiny O-ring to remove here. You will have one more O-ring inside here. All right, once you've got your vector stripped down, you need to get the appropriate seal kit and start to match up and replace your seals one at a time. So you'll probably want to start in your adjuster mechanism and assemble that into the eyelet, and then your damper assembly, and then your bottom out assembly. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with our high-speed adjuster and put our seal in the back of that. Take your time with this seal. It can be a little difficult to install because it's so small. All right. Then we'll go ahead and put the seal inside of our adjuster housing. Once you've got your seal in the adjuster, you're going to put your high-speed adjuster in from the back side, just a little bit. Then you're going to want to place your detent ball on top of the spring in the gland, right like that. You'll want to depress the ball while you push the adjuster forward into its set, and then thread it all the way out. Go ahead and get the O-ring on your low-speed adjuster mechanism. So you have your low-speed adjustment mechanism, detent ball, seal. Push it into your high-speed adjuster and thread it a few turns. After you have a few turns threaded, you can actually push it and snap it into its seat. It helps to use the knob to do this. Okay. Low speed knob is in place. Now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and inspect our low speed shim on the crossover piston. Make sure it's not lifted or deformed. Place the aluminum block on. Spring. That slides into that unit. Make sure that it freely floats forward and backwards. Check shim. And check spring. Go ahead and replace the seal in the eyelet. All right, use your vector tool to stand the compression unit vertically. Make sure all of your assembly is in correctly. Gently insert it past the O-ring and snug it down. This will torque to 125 inch-pounds. Go ahead and place your high-speed adjuster knob on. Tighten the set screws. And you want these just snug. Snug the first one, snug the second one. Give them about 1/8 of a turn. And then you should be able to install your low speed knob and screw. Setting the tension on the 2 high-speed set screws is very important. If the tension is too loose, your knobs will actually come up out of the shock and you'll have to redo your whole bleed. So what you want is you want those set screws to be nice and snug to where that low speed adjustment has a good positive firm click, but as now it's turning the high speed along with it. So that's just a hair too tight. So just back them off a little bit. And that's a well-adjusted system right there. Go ahead and open those all the way up. And set the eyelet aside. Next, go ahead and start on your rebound unit. So, detent ball and spring. Gently push them in. Set this into your eyelet. It will only go in one way, as one side is thread and one is not. Thread it in a few clicks. All right, so go ahead and reseal your rebound unit. A little bit of oil or grease. Right onto the gland. Then you'll want to remove any Loctite from inside your rebound eyelet. Once your rebound eyelet is clean, put a small dab of Loctite on the threads of your shaft. Along with a little bit of grease on the adjuster rod itself. Go ahead and spin that into the rebound eyelet. And just like our compression unit, this will torque to 125 inch-pounds. Go ahead and reinstall your bottom mount. For your seal head, you're going to start with your shaft O-ring. Go in from the bottom. Once your shaft seal is in its gland, go ahead and replace the dust wiper. And the main seal. So use your 12mm bullet head to guide it onto the shaft, like so. Then you can restack your rebound shims. Your piston, rebound side, compression side. Compression shims. Shim protection plate, and that whole assembly threads onto your shaft. Go ahead and torque this to 80 inch-pounds using an 11mm socket. All right, so once you're all done, you now have your damper assembled and your eyelet assembled, ready for a bleed. Consult your owner's manual for IFP depth and tool height information. This particular shock is a 215, so we are going to set our tool height at 51mm. Okay. Clean your IFP off and install a fresh IFP O-ring. Then what you're going to do is you're going to get your 10-weight shock oil. You're going to fill the reservoir side, again, making sure your adjustments are all the way open. Do it on a 45 so you're not introducing bubbles into the system. And as the fluid comes up to the threads, you can stand the shock vertically. Drop your IFP in vertically with the flat side towards the oil column, the hollow side towards the air volume. Go in vertically, roll it onto its side. That'll purge any bubbles from underneath it, and introduce it into its bore. Go ahead and clean all this out. Using your vector tool, place it here. When we set the IFP, we've already bled most of the bubbles out of the compression unit. So what you want to do is close your low speed, push it a couple millimeters, close your high speed, push a couple more millimeters, open your low speed, bottom it, and close your low speed back down. At this point, you've now flushed all the bubbles from each point in the compression assembly. Make sure your knobs are completely closed. Make sure the tool is bottomed out. Get yourself a little napkin. Top off the damper body with your 10-weight fluid. Go real slow as to not introduce any air bubbles into it. Right up to about halfway up the threads. Take your damper assembly, gently place it into the oil. You can watch micro bubbles come out while you're doing this, and give it a thread. Make sure you're pushing down pressure on your IFP tool. That will help any air bubbles to purge out of this little damper unit. And as you bottom out, you'll want to torque this damper seal head to 350 inch-pounds. Go ahead and remove your IFP tool, and you can dress your bottom out assembly. So we'll start with our outer seal. All right, install both your O-rings on the bottom out adjuster piston. Grease your bottom out adjuster shaft. Snap that in place. Using your snap ring pliers, reinstall the limiting snap ring. Make sure that piston glides freely. A little bit of grease on this outside seal again. Thread this on, push it down, and then back thread this one so that you're fully extending this piston all the way down to the snap ring. Once you've got that done, a little bit of grease around that lower O-ring. Drop it right on in place. The reservoir side of your assembly is going to torque to 250 inch-pounds. Then you can clean this. Reinstall your bottom out adjuster wheel. Torque your two set screws to 20 inch-pounds. They don't need to be super tight, just not vibrate loose. Rotate it 1/4 turn in from full bottom and repressurize to 200 PSI or user setting. Okay, once you've got the shock pressurized, go ahead and loosen your compression adjustments, take it over the hand dyno and cycle it to make sure there's no air bubbles in the system and you're good to go. If there's no air bubbles, you are ready to send back to the customer. That rebuild covered our Vector HLR. If you have a Vector RC or Vector R, the procedure is basically the same with less steps, same seal kit. The only difference is for the Vector RC, you don't have your high-speed adjuster and you don't have your bottom out. This shock will actually get a nitrogen charge to 200 psi as opposed to the adjustable bottom out of the Vector HLR. Same with the Vector R. You have nothing in the eyelet and a IFP reservoir that goes to 200 psi with nitrogen. So that's the only difference between those shocks. If you don't have nitrogen, don't try those ones. And that was a full service on our Vector coil. If you have any more questions, please feel free to visit our website.